Welcome to Keep It Humane, the podcast,
where we talk about animal control, shelters, and animal welfare, and the people doing the work.
with your hosts,
Ashley Bishop.
And sometimes Ashley Bishop.
and Daniel Ettinger, helping people help animals.
All right. It's just the two of us again this week, and both of us are in Texas in the middle of a snowstorm, winter storm.
Winter Storm Fern is what it's called, at least
Oh,
down
wait,
here.
they named it?
They named it here. I don't know if it's everywhere else that it's
Oh,
named somewhere, but it's
goodness.
Winter Storm Fern, and yeah, we're just we're going through it, folks. I know everybody's making fun of us Texans on the social medias because we don't know how to winter. And it's true. It's really true. We woke up this morning and all the windows on my home are absolutely frozen over. The grass is like shards of glass. My poor little chihuahuas were like, nope, we're not doing this.
It
It's
is something else.
interesting. It is.
Yeah.
It is. It kind of puts you in a panic mode. I'm not gonna lie. So the last time we had this major winter storm back when COVID was going on, I was in an apartment in the center of our, college town, and I will tell you, it was cold. At that point, our shelter had no power. We lost water as well. Our wonderful volunteer fire department came by and hooked us up with some water so that we can make sure that at least our animals' kennels were clean. So we stayed in that building 8 to 5 to make sure everybody was good. I ate it twice on black ice and in the snow.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm
No,
just
it's okay.
laughing.
Staff already was giving me crap for that a couple of days ago. I got severe pneumonia shortly afterwards because we were in that building for, I think it was 48 hours. But again, I always go back to, we're so lucky as a city. Our deputy city manager that we answered to actually showed up on one of those days during that time just to make sure we were good if we needed anything. So we were good there, but it was sure a journey compared to what I'm used to in deep South Texas on the coast.
I get it. Growing up in the East Coast, I guess where I grew up was the East Coast, even though it's kind of considered the Midwest. It's just like no man's land. We had real winter. And then I lived in Denver for, I don't know, 18 years, or Colorado for 18 years. And so I've experienced winter pretty much my entire life. And then I moved to Southern California. And in the mornings, Bishop, so those of you that don't, like, we text each other in the mornings, and it'll be like, Wisconsin Bishop, she'll send us something that'll be like -18. And then you'll send something that's like -40, or not -40, excuse me. It might feel like -40. And then I'll send something that's like 56. And I'm out there with like a full jacket on, the hat on. I'm like, you get acclimated so fast. And so I'm curious how that affects animals too. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. But it's just crazy to think, like, here in, where I decided to come to Texas during winter storm. What did you call it? Winter storm?
Fern, like the plant.
And we know there's a lot of outdoor animals here. So I'm curious if there's going to be any, like, any side effects that we see, or any of the shelters see from that. Would be interesting to find out.
I know it. Luckily, we haven't lost power at the facility. I've been checking on the officer that's working today, making sure that they're good.
Good.
She texted me earlier this morning saying, "Hey, the truck is like super frozen." I was like,
Oh, no.
I'm not going to be mad at that. Take your time. We don't need to be in a hurry anywhere." But yeah, we're running as usual, and shouts out to all the Texas ACOs who are first responders, but not technically first responders in our state, but who are still out there trucking along with everybody else. Doing the Lord's work on these days that we are not used to, for sure.
It is a cold one. I dread going out later after this recording, but I got to. Well, we have a really cool guest. I'm really excited and appreciative of his flexibility. We were going back and forth with some different times, and then we made it work with this travel day that I had. So I want to introduce Wayne Pacelle for joining. First off, thank you for joining us. Thanks for being so flexible, and happy to have you, man.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor, my pleasure.
So some may be very familiar with your name, and others may not. Would you mind just kind of giving a brief, maybe, bio of who you are and what you're up to these days?
Sure, absolutely. So again, Wayne Pacelle. I'm president of a couple of organizations. I've got other affiliations too, but I'm president of Animal Wellness Action, which is a 501c4 organization. So that's the sort of group that does more political and lobbying work, trying to drive public policy. So lobbying the Congress, lobbying the states, doing ballot measures, litigation, and then sometimes even getting involved in elections, favoring pro-animal welfare candidates, opposing candidates or lawmakers who don't see the world the way that we do. And then a second organization, which I also founded, called the Center for a Humane Economy. And that is a group that focuses on trying to get businesses, corporations, to do better when it comes to animal welfare in their supply chains, R&D operations, other activities of the corporation. So that, just to give you a practical example, the Center for Humane Economy has a campaign called Kangaroos Are Not Shoes.
Mm.
And the major athletic shoe companies, until a few years ago, were all using kangaroo skins obtained from kangaroos shot in the wild in large-scale commercial shoots for their soccer shoes, their soccer cleats. So in the last 4 or 5 years, we started this campaign really in 2020. We ran the table with the 9 biggest athletic shoe brands in the world to get them to stop sourcing kangaroo skins for their athletic shoes. And that's just one example of a corporate sort of campaign that we do. So I have a long history in animal protection. I was a college student and started an animal advocacy group because these issues really moved me. I didn't like the idea of people misusing their power and hurting animals for their whims, for their profits, for their recreation. And I just kind of got steeped in it over time. I have led several of the major organizations in the field through these many years, and just have 35 years plus in the rearview mirror in animal protection.
What was that like? Do you have that core moment? Some people do. I do for me getting into this profession. For you, like, what was it about animals that made you like, this is where I need to be?
Yeah, I wrote a book, Daniel, about this issue of our human relationship to animals. It was called The Bond. And one of the things that I argue in the book, which came out, I think it was 2011, was that we humans have an instinctive draw to animals and to nature, that it's hardwired in us. If you accept the idea that Homo sapiens has been around for a couple 100,000 years plus, we were hunters and gatherers for the preponderance of our time on this planet. And we were immersed in nature. I mean, people killed animals for food, but when they did so, they apologized to them. They, tried to respect them and show decency toward them. Many of them had an animistic view of the world. They thought they would even come back as animals. It was not a hierarchical view. And, I just think that we're a social being. We need others in order to feel whole and complete as humans, right? We have friends. You guys are co-hosts on your show. It's really important that you've got the other host. It's a camaraderie. It's a kinship. We are close to family. We are close to friends. The worst thing you can do to someone who is in prison is put him or her in solitary confinement. And I think when you think about our human existence on this world, we share this little small blue-green planet with more than 1 million other species, 1 million other species at least. And they make this world alive. I mean, truly and literally. We're watching the backyard. My wife and I are feeding the birds today, and been going out with 6 or 7 bird feeders, and they've been going to town as the snow and the sleet are coming out there. And, we're generally, when we're not doing that, we're hunkered down inside and we're watching these birds and we're just marveling at them. The red cardinals and the blue jays and the woodpeckers. And these incredible feats of flight of these birds. You wonder, how do they even survive this going on? I did a show called Talking Birds this morning, and the guy who came after me on the show, and I listened to it, he was like, yeah, some of these nuthatches, they grow 500 more feathers during the winter so they can withstand the cold. Lots of other birds migrate, right? Like the Arctic tern goes from the Arctic to the Antarctic every year. The godwin flies 9 straight days without stopping from the northern latitudes down to New Zealand. I mean, Ashley and Daniel, they don't even stop. I mean,
That's
this is a
amazing.
miracle.
Yeah,
They're
it's
flying for
unreal.
9 days straight, thousands and thousands of miles. They're not stopping to feed. They're not stopping to sleep. It's incredible. So I was always dazzled by the animals of the world, just absolutely dazzled by them. And I knew that they were different, but they were different in good ways, right? They were beautiful. They were fast. They flew high and fast and long. They had incredible characteristics. I thought, why should we hurt them? We should be good to them.
That goes for, in my opinion, every animal. I think,
Mm.
as we've evolved as humans, we've found alternatives in better humane ways, whether it's Temple Grandin and her way of the how we've, dealt with cattle in this country, those type of situations. I mean, I think th that I would love to see more people be kind to animals, but I think we just have every walk of life, and unfortunately, we're going to have people that don't agree with that way of thinking.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, the whole notion of cruelty to animals is it's kind of a universal value to oppose cruelty. And what's the definition of cruelty, right? It's causing harm and pain for no good reason. So one of the things that I wrote about in the bond and also in the second book that I wrote called The Humane Economy is that really it's up to us, the people who are morally alert to these issues, to drive change for animals. We've got to do better as a species. We shouldn't have factory farming, and we shouldn't have animal testing. We shouldn't have trophy hunting. We shouldn't have cockfighting and dogfighting. We shouldn't have puppy mills. We shouldn't have horse slaughter. We shouldn't have greyhound racing. We shouldn't have a lot of these things. And if we have an alternative, if we can live our lives in a complete and full way without victimizing an animal, then we should choose that other pathway. And your point is just spot on. We have a combination here of moral intention with human creativity and ingenuity, right? The point is we can figure this stuff out. We can figure this shit out, right? Because it should not be that hard for us to do what we want to do as a species, have great lives, not have to sacrifice, but also let the animals have their place on the earth as well.
Agreed. So Wayne, you have decades of experience in this field and kind of a larger scale than I would say my personal experience. How have you seen the animal welfare movement change over the last 2 decades? And has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Have we just kind of neutralized?
Yeah, good question, Ashley. When I was starting off in the 80s as a college student, I mean, the notion of animal protection was certainly there, but it was just not familiar to a lot of people. And, I know I grew up as a working class kid. My father was a high school football coach. He was a phys ed teacher. My mother was a secretary at my uncle's construction company. And, I didn't know about animal organizations, right? I was a teenager. I hadn't had any touch or exposure with them. So I feel like there was just not a lot of awareness. And I think in the 80s, there was a real kind of flowering of advocacy about animals, and it kind of put the issue on the radar screen. And we became more organized. There were more organizations formed. And now, if you look at some of the numbers, there are 35,000 animal protection groups, depending on how you define that term in the United States.
In the
So you
United
have
States, so that's like rescues, shelters,
exactly
nonprofits.
rescues, right? Every kind of rescue, Chihuahua rescue, which Ashley, you're obviously familiar with, right? And Great Dane rescue, and everybody in between. And then you have 3,000 brick and mortar, shelters. You've got animal care and control operations in every county. We have 3,100 counties in the United States. Then you've got like specialist groups, like there's a hummingbird group, there's a black bear group, there's a mountain lion group.
Totally.
You've got farm animal groups. You have groups that want to address animal testing. I mean, it is incredible how many organizations there are. I mean, I'd say the vast majority of them are rescues, right? Feral cat groups, breed rescue organizations, but you pretty much have everything. And that really means that these ideas are kind of in the marrow of our culture, right? I can go, and I used to go when I was CEO of the Humane side of the U.S. I was often, there were years that I would go to every state in the country and visit with people and speak and do things. And you have animal people everywhere. I'd say, Ashley, to answer your question, I could opine on that for a long time, but I feel like in so many ways, these have become mainstream notions, right? And
Mm.
I look at our work on the Fight Act. We have a bill to upgrade the federal law against dogfighting and cockfighting. We have 1,050 endorsing organizations for this federal legislation. It's the National Sheriff's Association. It's the National District Attorneys Association. It's also the Alabama Sheriff's Association, Tennessee, Georgia, Idaho. I mean, 40 years ago, would you ever think that Alabama Sheriff's Association would be advocating for animal protection? No. I mean, I just don't think so. But it's become part of our culture and society. So I would say we're doing better, no question about it. Awareness and we're closing out certain problems, or we're close to closing them out, like commercial whaling. Just 3 nations do it, and we're just about down to one, because the 2 of them are teetering. Greyhound racing, a generation ago there were 60 Greyhound tracks in the U.S. Now there are just 2. 60 to
Circuses,
2 is some serious.
circuses are not using animals in many states, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. And you think of horse slaughter, right? Horse slaughter for consumption. So Americans don't eat horses, but there are some countries that have people who eat horses. So we in 1990, as a country, we were slaughtering 400,000 horses domestically. So there were some plants in Texas. There was one outside of Dallas in Kaufman, Texas. There was one in Fort Worth called Beltex. There was one in Illinois. And 30 years prior to that, we had like 20 or 30 horse slaughter plants. We shut all those down in 2006 and 2007. Now we export some of the horses to Mexico and Canada, but we went from 400,000 to last year was 22,000. So I think, Ashley, when you ask that question, progress, I want to use very specific metrics at some level, right?
Sure.
And I think euthanasia is a metric. I think that intake into shelters is a metric. I think growth of the budget of animal organizations, whether they're government funded or privately funded, those are all metrics. And I think we've got immense challenges, because one of the causes trying to manage relationships with a million other species. I mean, it's pretty damn complex.
What's a
what
good
we're doing.
segue, Wayne? Just because we talk about it a lot on the show as far as shelter expectations, the animal shelter world, animal control world, and we're known for pushing back on the no-kill terminology and save them all terminology, and it's created a reputation for me in the program, of someone that, look, I'm one of the last people that would want us to euthanize anything. But for whatever reason, it's because I'm not agreeable to that terminology. I'm an outsider with that. My question is, at what risk? At what risk are we taking, potentially putting animals back in the community, just to have this metric, just to reach this arbitrary goal? And you may know better than others. I mean, your time at the Humane Society was quite some time, and I don't know what your involvement, or not you specifically, but what the Humane Society's involvement with Best Friends was at the time you were there. But I'll say that we've created this arbitrary feel-good number of 90%, and then and then I got this in an email yesterday, from a friend that wishes to remain anonymous, that they were reached out to by Best Friends to be considered no kill, even though they can't reach the 90% goal due to their community. As long as they signed an agreement and put specific information on their website, they could be considered no kill. So I mean, it's even more arbitrary when you hear it that way. So I'm
Yeah.
just, what, like, it's a twofold question, Wayne, because what I was going to bring up earlier is ultimately the why for me is how to help people help animals. Like, the more animals that we can help, that's the goal. But there's all this infighting amongst organizations, and then you have these goals that not everybody can agree with. Like, how do we find a way to get everybody just to say, like, look, we're here to help people and help animals? Like, that's the goal.
Yeah. There's we're never all going to get along, right? I mean, no cause ever has, right? You look at any other, there were fights in the civil rights movement, there were fights among women's organizations, there were fights within gun rights groups, there were fights within the Republican Party, different factions, same with the Democrat Party. So we're not immune from any of those sects or schisms or philosophical shades of gray. That is just part of who we are as a species. I mean, you get two people, you're going to have 10 different fights over issues. So I think that the notion that euthanasia was a perfectly acceptable outcome, as a matter of routine, that needed to be challenged. And I credit the no-kill movement for, raising that issue. I think that
I would agree with that. I
Agreed.
would.
I agree.
And I think that we all need to be questioned at times, right? Those of us who
Absolutely.
are viewed as more establishment types, we've got to be able to hear what people are thinking, and we can get locked in a mindset, just like the enterprises that we're trying to change get locked in a mindset. So I think that this definition issue of no kill, right? I mean, I think we all should agree that if there's a healthy, adoptable animal, the best outcome is for that animal to have a full, long life in someone's home, and they should have a love affair, with their humans in their lives. I think that the idea that there's just one metric, when you have vastly different resources in communities, you have vastly different demographics, that's a problem, right? And then, if you're just cooking the numbers, that doesn't really help animals. And I think that when I said, I think we're making progress on euthanasia, I think we're moving in the right direction, because people are increasingly alert to the needs of animals. They know that every animal life matters and that we're all doing our best. But there are cases where, we medically euthanize animals, right? I mean, animals, just like people, face an endpoint. And this is one of the few areas where we may be better when it comes to treating animals than people, because euthanasia can be a painless way to end a lot of suffering. Obviously, you've got behavioral issues. I mean, I went through this with the Michael Vick thing, right? I mean, I was all up in Michael Vick's grill when the dogfighting thing happened, and I had been very focused on stopping dogfighting and cockfighting, and I still am. And, there was a big thing about Vic's dogs and saving them, and rehabbing pit bull type dogs who were taken from dog fighters. That's a really tough debate. And
Very much so.
I think it's good that we had it and are having it. But, frankly, I'm going through the same thing on cockfighting. I mean, you got 20 million fighting birds in the United States. I mean, it's insane. 20 million. I mean, we have been cataloging what's going on. This is an organized criminal association in the United States of America. These people are involved in money laundering, narcotics trafficking, certainly illegal gambling. They're involved in a whole host of crimes. If we're really hitting these guys hard, and we are doing our best working with law enforcement, if we're having 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 busts every week, and that's just tip of the iceberg, where are we going to put all these roosters? I mean, we have a shelter network for dogs and cats that is in the thousands, right? And then it was an incredible expansion of our capacity when groups began to go to fostering, right? That you have people who are connected to groups who will take them in their homes. Sometimes it's not the best thing to put an animal shelter. There are a lot of other animals there. The disease issues are real. So get them in a foster and take advantage of that volunteer labor of a family who wants to care for an animal in need. But what are we going to do with the roosters? So I have people saying, Wayne, what's going to happen with all those roosters? Well, I would love to put all those roosters into a barnyard setting and have them be fine. But if we are doing our job, which is to shut down these cockfighting operations, we don't have the space. So, Daniel, this is an incredibly complicated issue, but I just want to say that I want to move in the right direction. I want to save as many lives as possible, but I'm not about hitting some arbitrary number and claiming that it's something. That's not what I'm about. That's for sure.
So Wayne, let me take it a bit further too. And I love the work that HFWA now, I guess, is what they go by, and no longer HSUS. I think that's the right acronym, HFWA, HWFA, Humane World.
Yeah, that was a head scratcher for me.
Yeah, you get where I'm going.
Humane
My point
World
is
for Animals.
HWFA. Well, I'm trying here, people. I'm trying. But like legislatively, and you talked about it when you got on, like we need to do more to promote responsible pet ownership. And we said it many times on this show, where why can't we push to actually allow, and there's been more rumblings of this, but like allow for tax credits for a certain amount of animals that you own, dog or cat, that has a current rabies vaccination, has a microchip. Like, how can we promote it that way? Is also obviously spay or neutered unless there's a medical reason not to do that. Like, that's how we get it. And then additionally, I'm just going to lump in the legislation, like stop allowing landlords to say you can't have pets. Like that should be illegal across the board.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that is a big deal. But we have big strains of thought in our country about private property rights, right? So that's maybe like, if I own this place, I own this apartment building, I'm going to decide. But given the prevalence, as you guys know so well and talk about on your podcast, I mean, people love their animals. They're part of the family. I mean, if you're not open to having people with pets, you shrink your housing pool right away. Now, we have a housing shortage in this country, and it's more acute in some states than the others, and people are getting priced out. So maybe some of these places feel like they can get away with it in that regard. But yeah, I think it's a problem. But you do have people, who say, hey, we shouldn't have pit bulls in this community. And you've got all sorts of trends. I personally would love to use the tax code more to incent people on animal welfare, right? I mean, we had taxes. I mean, this goes in a different direction, but we taxed cigarettes, right? Because we knew that cigarettes cause cancer, right? I mean, there are a lot of us in the world who smoke, right? So I don't smoke now, but there are a lot of people who smoke, and I'm not pointing a finger at them, right? It's a big habit, but we know it's problematic from a health perspective. And
totally.
Yeah, so we tax that in order to disincent that, and then use that money potentially for healthcare related things. So, we have a big dog bite problem in this country, right? So you could see there are millions of people, are bitten by dogs. It's a healthcare issue at some level. I mean, you would think that we could maybe use the tax code to promote responsible behavior or insurance rates on good drivers, and all sorts of things are done to create incentives in our society. And I would like to see more of that, but it's tough to think of. I do a lot of work in Congress, and these ideas would need to be socialized very well. The notion of animal protection has always been like, okay, you all have these organizations that privately funded, you're going to have to handle it. We're not going to get money from Uncle Sam on these issues. And I tell you, the ag industry, they get all sorts of subsidies for
they do.
crops. I mean, animal research, these guys are funded by us, the taxpayers. The animal use industries are drinking from the federal trough. We, as a community, we get basically nothing from the federal government. We're doing it all privately, and we're not doing it out of self-interest. We're doing it because we care. And, I think the world needs to turn around on that, but, it's going to be a long-term process.
And I think beyond that, it's just a complicated issue as well. Like for me, I originally come from deep South Texas. I am from the Rio Grande Valley. I was born and raised in Brownsville, Texas. As we all know, the population, I mean, that's what got my, inkling. I always wanted to be a veterinarian, but when I started working for one of the municipal shelters down there, it opened up my eyes to a whole different reality. Between working in Brownsville, I did a lot of time, or I did some time in at Palm Valley, which a lot of people are very familiar with, down in South Texas. At what point, Wayne, do we start really holding people accountable, whether it's communities, the government, the people who work in the industry? Like, how do we turn this around? Because at this point, I feel like we're so far down the hole, at least in just domesticated animals. I can only imagine what you're seeing on your end on a wide scale
Yeah.
beyond species. How do we start holding people accountable when there's just so many other things that we're fighting? Like, sometimes I feel like we lose so much hope. It gets so discouraging when we're not only fighting battles within our communities, but then, here in Texas, where everybody thinks that we just treat our animals so poorly and we have this astronomical issue. Like, how do we start holding people accountable?
Yeah. Well, listen, Ashley, that's a really good and important question. I don't have an easy answer to it, right? Because we have a lot of diversity, right? A lot of our problems with animals, are tied to how much people are struggling in some ways, right? When you're struggling to make ends meet for yourself, it's just tougher to use some of that income and time to help animals. Now, I think we learned a big lesson, way back when during the Katrina crisis, when our community came together to help with a massive animal rescue. And we learned as a society that people from every class, every ethnic group, every racial group, um, every geography, they all care about animals. I mean, we were knocking on doors and peeking through windows to see if animals were in the home in the richest neighborhoods in New Orleans and Mississippi and the rest of Louisiana, as well as the poorest people. And animals were everywhere, right? So I think that this is just part of our definition of community. We need to care for all the members of our community. And the dogs and the cats are members of our community, just like the adult humans and the kids are. And frankly, so are the birds and so are the other animals in our lives. But we need leadership, Ashley. I think that's the number one thing. You can see, government works, when you have strong leaders with good ideas, and the nonprofit sector and government institutions work when they have good, strong leaders. I think we need to bring a sense of urgency to the fight. We have to we have to be shouting from the rooftops. We have to show that we care. And I think when we are authentic and we are fighting towards a goal, we're going to have better outcomes. I mean, these things are not self-executing. It takes human beings, making the world better. It's up to each one of us, and don't leave it up to somebody else. But we need good leaders. That's one of the most important things in my mind.
Wayne, it's fascinating stuff, man. I think that succession planning for the future is something we need to consider. And I love the fact that we are able to help other pets, domestic pets in other countries. But we talk about, I mean, Bishop, you brought it up multiple times. Like, think about the issues we have in Texas. Houston's said to have hundreds of thousands of strays just running the streets. And so I would love to find a way for us to focus our time and efforts in our own backyard and then succession plan for the future. And, man, I want to win these lotteries that are like $1 billion, not because I want the money so I can fly like in an Airbus A380 in business class with my own little suite. Like, it has nothing to do with that. Truly has everything to do with, like, I would want to find a way to start so many low-cost spay and neuter clinics for
Mhm.
pets, because that's what we need. I've asked this question kind of, not, I haven't even asked this question, Wayne. I've brought this up several times. Why do you think none of the big players like the HSUS, Best Friends, ASPCA have grants for veterinarians in this country? Like, have not a grant, but a scholarship. Like, those would be the ones that I would think that would create a scholarship to promote, since we have an alleged veterinary shortage, like get these people to pull, like they have hundreds of millions of dollars, do a couple scholarships a year. Why are we not doing that?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I was, the CEO of one of the big groups. I mean, I helped grow it. Um, I always wanted to focus on all animals. Uh, but those groups that are focusing principally on companion animals, I mean, I just don't feel like there's enough urgency.
Mm.
I don't think that there's urgency at the ASPCA. I don't think there's urgency at these other organizations, or they're looking at one narrow question. And when I lead the organizations that I'm running, I mean, we're working on a whole bunch of stuff. We're trying to get prevention by having policies, public policies or corporate policies, to leverage the power of government, the power of laws, to influence the lives of billions of animals. I I don't feel that a lot of these organizations are bringing urgency every day. I'm not sure they are hollering and screaming from the rooftop that we have to solve this problem. And as you say, I mean, there's always been a fraught relationship with the veterinary community, and part of that has to do with,
I agree.
yeah, part of it has to do with the AVMA and the state VMAs, and
Sure.
they are running businesses, right?
Hmm.
You know, I think it's a noble profession, right? Veterinary school is really difficult. It's challenging. You know, we've got a bunch of vets on our team, and these people are just amazing. So believe me, I'm pro veterinarian as a general matter. But the veterinary associations, you talk about a lack of leadership. I mean, they're just not there. They're not part of these solutions. I mean, we couldn't even get them to endorse a ban on cockfighting in some states. I mean, the AVMA won't even endorse the Fight Act. We've got the sheriffs, we've got the DAs, we've got the egg producers, but we don't have the AVMA. I mean, on dogfighting and cockfighting. I mean, I think it's an embarrassment. And the veterinary subgroups are like the pork vets and the avian vets and the horse vets, and a lot of times they're just captured by the industries that they're working for. And in terms of companion animal work, they they would fight some of the groups that fewer opportunities for them to get full price spaying or neutering was what they wanted, and they didn't want the animal groups doing the low cost veterinary work. So I think it's changing because you have so many women now in the veterinary profession who are really not like the farm ag vets that used to dominate the veterinary profession. Now they're companion animal oriented. So I think we've got enormous opportunities to work with vets, but it's a complex issue. I wish it were easier, but they've got to be part of the solution. And I think that spaying and neutering, just I don't know about you guys. I just don't feel like it has the urgency it used to have.
That's where I'm at. Bishop, what are you thinking?
I feel the same. When I entered this industry back in 2009-ish, down in the valley and just kind of seeing the struggles. I mean, for me, going into work every day was, I've mentioned it several times in this podcast, going into work was showing up, seeing all the drop-off kennels, seeing thousands and thousands throughout my years working there of animals just being dumped in those kennels, cats, dogs, you name it, and cats that were sick, other animals, separate species being put together in kennels. We find dead animals in there because people weren't paying attention to that. I felt like at that time when I joined the industry and where I wanted to go, we were going somewhere. Like it felt like we were moving in a direction where people were starting to understand, why do we microchip? Why do we rabies vaccinate? Specifically for us down on the border. Why do we spay and neuter, and why those things are important? I just don't know. Like for me, myself, I can't pinpoint when that kind of disappeared. And here we are now where it feels like the problem's just more astronomical. And it's like people are screaming from the rooftops, like, yes, they don't want animals to be euthanized, but at the same time,
Where's the capacity?
There you go. Exactly. Where's the capacity? What do we do with all of these animals? Do I enjoy going into work and trying to figure out, okay, we have 2 kennels. I have 4 animal control officers that are out in the field. Each one generally brings in about 3 or 4 animals a day, depending on species. Where are we going to fit all these animals? Cindy Lou Who and Fluffy over here, yes, they've been here a long time and they probably have the opportunity to get adopted, absolutely, but they've also been here for 6 months. What do I do with
spay and neuter was my predecessors at HSUS, like in the early 70s. They really popularized the notion of spay and neuter, right? I mean, I give them great credit for it. This was not the way it was, right? We think of spay and neuter in our lifetimes as kind of that was a core behavior, but it had to be learned and it had to be taught, and people had to be, they had to be oriented toward this as a core strategy of dealing with the companion animal problems and the euthanasia issue and placement and all that. I don't know. I mean, if I would ask you, who is the leading voice for that right now?
Right here, Keep It Humane, the podcast. We are the leading voice. The problem is we don't have the budget. We don't have
okay.
That's what I'm saying, man. If I
don't know about that, but I think Kathy's,
Oh, Kathy Bissell, yeah. She is. She does.
Kathy Bissell is a huge leader on this. I totally agree with you.
She is. Totally she has the budget.
Great. Yeah. But so she's one, but right, she's a Bissell Foundation, right? It's a family foundation, right? What about the organizations that have members in every jurisdiction of our country? Who's screaming about that now?
Dr. G doing it up in Ohio with the Rascal Unit. I mean, you have your some people doing it. Greenville, South Carolina has a great program with their municipal shelter, but it's
THLN over here in Texas.
I mean, the ASP, you tell me, I mean, when I was talking, to the leadership of the ASPCA, I haven't talked to them in some years now, but they were talking about, they were setting up low-cost spay and neuter clinics. The idea was to get 20,000 animals in the door, every year, and you could make that model work. I mean, is that happening? I don't know. I don't hear about it, but maybe I'm not listening. My ears aren't perked in the right places, maybe. And are we saying, okay, where do we need to put those resources? I mean, why are we focused so much on LA, or why are we focused on some of these areas where there are more donors rather than in Brownsville?
Well, you just said it though. That's why.
Yeah.
It's truly, with all due respect to all of these large organizations, I'm not here to try to shit on any of them. I'm really not. I think they all do great things, but I do think that there's a part of it that is fueled by survival. Like, they have to find ways to get that money in to be a valid company. So
right. Well, my philosophy was always this way when I was at HSUS, and it is now. I want to show people that if you invest in our work, there's going to be an incredible return, right? So animals are going to be saved. So you go to the Animal Wellness Action website or Center for Humane Economy website, you go about us, there's successes. We passed national legislation to stop doping in horse racing. We are eliminating greyhound racing. We are stopping horse slaughter. We are moving the country toward a cage-free future for laying hens or breeding sows to get them out of these immobilizing cages and crates. I believe that if these groups could show that they're moving the needle, the donors would come in droves. It's not just about geography. I mean, people in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills and wealthy areas, they don't just want to see stuff locally. They want to see people helped in Texas and Alabama and Tennessee and Nebraska. So I get, this just goes back to the leadership issue that we talked about. We need good leadership.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about those websites. So centerforhumaneeconomy.org is the one, and then you also have the animalwellnessaction.org. So people can go straight to those websites, go to the read about or the about what they do, et cetera, and kind of just get involved that way, right?
Yeah. And, we're not your group. If the Center for Humane Economy is not your group that's going to be doing low cost spay neuter. I love that. We just have a different strategy, right?
Mhm.
We're trying to get pharmaceutical companies to stop using beagles. We're
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
50,000 beagles in
Yeah.
laboratory experiments, using 75,000 primates. We're going to stop all that. We're going to deal with that. We're dealing with the kangaroos. We're dealing with the food industry and getting the animals out of cages. Animal Wellness Action, is passing laws like the Fight Act. We want a legal framework that no animal fighter, no dog fighter, no cockfighter in this country feels safe engaged in their illegal activities. Not one of them. They need to be looking over their shoulders. Every weekend, our investigators are going out and finding these places and droning them and getting inside and working with law enforcement to bust them. But again, not one group or two groups are not going to be everything to all issues. And that's why you, as an advocate, your listeners need to, like, if you care about something, find a group that is really aligned with where you want to go. And, I think there's so many amazing grassroots advocates and so many people who really care. And, you mentioned Kathy Bissell, her great work on the spay and neuter front. You think about every problem, there's somebody working on it in our country on animals, and find them. Don't just default to the brands that because they may not be getting the job done.
Totally.
I want to talk a little bit before we kind of end the podcast, Wayne, is kind of your movement in legislation. What kind of luck are you having there? What kind of struggles are you seeing on the broad spectrum of things? Because I'm sure that a lot of the work that you're doing also has a lot of pushback as far as, people with money who see these horrible things happening have a real big play in it. And I'm sure it's a difficult area that you're having to deal with to overcome some of that.
I mean, you're talking about the biggest sectors of the economy that use
Mhm.
animals, right? You're talking about agriculture, you're talking about
Big
science and
pharma.
drug, yeah,
Mhm.
pharma, drug development. I mean,
Soaps.
yeah, you got everything. I mean, wildlife management, fashion, all these spaces. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I would say I would put our work on the public policy um, uh, bucket into two categories. One is we're trying to close out terrible practices that are archaic and that we can finish off, like greyhound racing or like horse slaughter, like cockfighting, like dog fighting, like mink farming for fur. We don't need mink farming. People don't need mink coats. We
No,
have
they
these
don't.
wild mink on factory farms. These are solitary, wild animals. They are very aggressive with other mink, yet they put them together. I had a guy who worked for me. He's an amazing guy, Scott Beckstead. He grew up on the border of Utah and Idaho. His grandfather had a mink farm. It was his job to go every morning and pull the dead mink out after they had attacked each other through the night. That was his job. These are tough, aggressive animals that we put in a factory farm so we can sell the fur coats to China because no one is using them here for fur in the United States. So we're trying to close out a whole bunch of this, but then we're also trying to take on these enterprises that use billions of animals, like animals raised for food on factory farms,
Mhm.
and millions of animals used in animal testing, millions of them killed in wildlife management, commercial trapping, canned hunts, bear baiting. So yeah, it's a slugfest every day. I mean, it's a war. And that's why we need, people to be alert to these issues. We can work on companion animal issues and solve that issue, and we can also fight for the rest of the animals. And I ask everybody who's an animal advocate, think broadly. Work locally,
Mhm.
work nationally. These are not mutually exclusive places.
Absolutely. And I think in our industry as animal control, we see a lot of that, people upset because the skunks crossing the creek that goes through their yard. Well, yeah, when you tear down thousands of acres to build millions of homes, like you have to learn to live with wildlife. I mean, that's how it is here in Texas. We're not here to just pick them up and have them euthanized. It's a big struggle on what we do on our front as well as people realizing that we're not the only species.
Yeah, so well said, Ashley. I mean, we are the dominant species on this planet, right? It's some people have
I
called it
mean,
the Anthropus.
on the land, like I'm a big fan of the orca whale, and if that thing was on land, I don't know. I mean, they'd probably have cyber trucks too. I would just say. Like, I'm just saying, like if they could get on land, that's the
We're in trouble.
I do think, Daniel, that's funny, but let me tell you, I'm amazed that we have whales on this planet. I mean, who you think of killing a blue whale is 100 feet long, potentially
so big.
100 tons. They're bigger than the dinosaurs that ever walked the
They
planet
sure
65
are.
million years ago. This is a miracle of nature, and people are a couple countries are killing them for no real purpose. I mean, it used to be that we killed whales for oil, and the oil from the whale was used in lamps, and it was a heating and lighting fluid. But then we discovered petroleum. Right now, you guys in Texas, you cornered the market in the Permian Basin there, but that was an innovation. We didn't need to kill whales any longer. But I just go back all the time to how amazing these animals are. I look at my little dog Asher. He likes tennis balls, so we call him Arthur Asher. He was rescued, from South Carolina by an amazing rescue, lucky dog, and he was hit by a car. Apparently, broke two legs on the same side. Four vertebrae were broken as well. Somehow he
Jeez.
survived a month on his own. Now he is just this amazing dog. He's got a limp, but he's incredible. He's beautiful. You look at him, you think, this is a glorious creature. And I still feel that way after all these years. I look at these animals and they amaze me every day, and it motivates me to fight for them. And I know that's the same way both of you guys are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think humanity has just lost respect for animals, and I'm not gonna say yay or nay on anything. I do eat meat and all that stuff, but I just feel like we've lost the respect of what animals were used for us to get to this point in society.
Yeah, yeah, and we've had a long run as a species, but during that long run, we understand more about animals now, right? We know that they have families. They know that they have desires and wants. I mean, when I was starting, I mean, honestly, some people said, well, animals are just products of evolution and they just do things because of evolution, like they don't have choice or they don't have like their own thinking and their own minds. That is ridiculous now. I mean, most people understand that that's ridiculous. And if these animals can feel pain like we do, if they can think and have their own wishes and wants, can't we find a place for them and not hurt them just as a normal process of who we are? So ultimately, I think these ideas are going to win out. I think these ideas are going to triumph, but we have to continue to prosecute the case.
And that's what we're here for. We really appreciate you taking time to join us today, Wayne. It was great. Please, if you ever have anything you want to share with us, want to come back on the program, you're more than welcome to do so.
Listen, I'm really glad to be your compatriots in the cause. I thank you for spreading the gospel that you do through your podcast, and great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, take care. Thanks again. As always, we like to say, let's continue to help people
Help animals.
and keep it humane.
Keep it in